Serum 2 is here and it's amazing. So many new features, so much to talk about, so I wanted to make my first feature-focused video. And based off all of the questions that y'all had, I wanted to talk about one of the most exciting new features for me, which is spectral synthesis, and the unique way that we can now use Serum to get access to all of these cool new features. It feels like a really fresh type of synthesis. Even though it's been around for a while, now that it's in Serum, it's easily accessible and totally worth talking about. One of the things we like to stress at Futureproof is why things work, not just how to do them. If you're able to understand a concept at its core, then you'll be able to get better on your own and become the amazing music producer that you were always meant to be. So let's get right into it. Okay, here we are. Our first step is to change from wavetable to spectral mode. There's nothing in here out the gates, and we can select samples from the drop-down menu here if we want to. Bass, bowed, brass, flute, all the above. These are all very cool and worth exploring, but I want to bring in my own sample because I think that this is the way that most people are going to use it, and it's also a really easy way to explain it. So I'm going to bring in this vocal thing. It's a bit of a run. It sounds like this. All right, let's talk about what exactly we're looking at here. Spectral synthesis is the concept of breaking a sound down into individual frequencies, or partials. Normally, when you're looking at an audio file, you're looking at what's called the time domain, which is how a sound progresses over time. We have that in spectral mode, but now we've moved into what's called a frequency domain. And that's just how this is visually represented. We can generate a bunch of unique tones by manipulating these frequencies, or partials. Let's talk about what's happening visually here. Out the gates, it's kind of like a sampler. The reason I chose this sample is because it changes notes, which allows me to tell you about how this visual representation changes. Vertically, we have what's like an EQ. On the bottom of the y-axis is low end, and on the top is high end. And we can use this little fader knob here to almost EQ and select what part of the frequencies we are using spectral synthesis upon. I like that I can see, like it's going up as the sound progresses from left to right, which brings me to the x-axis, which shows how the sample is played from left to right. We have access to unison, which gives us stereo width and detuning. We can also use one-shot, forward loop, forward reverse loop, tailed, all the things that you get in sampler mode. So if we go to reverse loop, we can select the blue lines here. Let's trim off the end, because we've got some dead audio at the end there. And this blue line represents the part of the loop that's playing. So after the sample gets done playing, it'll lock into where the blue bar is based off of whether this says reverse loop, forward reverse loop, etc. Next to the word reverse loop, we have this little X here, which actually is the fades on the loop itself. As we drag this up, we can get fades in any direction we want. One of the things I like to do whenever I drag in a tonal sample into an oscillator is make sure that it's set to C, because I know if I add in oscillator B or oscillator C, I want these to play in key, or at least play a harmony. So this is an F note, right? Which means to bring it to C, we bring it to -5 semitones. Let's turn this on to one shot. Now if I turn on oscillator B, we should be in key. If you listen to the sample, that's the root note. So when I play through this thing, you can hear they play the same note at the end of the sample. So that might be worth noting. Maybe that's the part we highlight or just play. Let's get there. I can drop oscillator B down. Now we can layer them. They're in key. This is super duper important because we can make a harmony now if we want to, or we can just keep it as a root note. The next important thing to talk about is the scan knob, which is located right below the one shot. Scan determines the speed and the direction that we get during playback. So if we put this to 12 o'clock, let's turn off oscillator B. It's stagnant. It's not progressing through the sample at all. It's not moving, which can be cool. But if we move scan knob to the right, the further to the right we go, the faster it plays the sample. You can imagine that if we go to the left, it plays it backwards. Let's loop this. Having scan set to the middle almost has a granular effect, which I really like. Let's play through the whole sample and put this back on one-shot mode. So at the very least, you can just play through samples and scan through them in a really unique way. The way this graph works is the darker it is, the less there is of that frequency. So you can see the bottom, there's basically no low end. But as we start to remove the densely populated kind of white color here, we start to lose the fundamental of the sound, which can be cool. Say we don't want a high end, we'll bring this down. So that's the scan up. Let's put this back to one voice. The next guy I want to talk about is the filter. If we click on filter, you can see that we can edit an actual filter that's scanning through our spectral wavetable that we have now. Very cool. So if we wanted to create a low pass filter, we can just click and drag, kind of like what we do in the LFO view. Right? And we could definitely use an LFO to modulate this because this is a cutoff knob here. This is an interesting way to create movement. And we all know movement is really good for sound design. Sounds without movement are stagnant. Stagnant can be good for something like a pad, but I just love to have movement in my sounds, even if it's very subtle. We also have a mix knob here, which is just the dry wet for the filter. A really cool thing to do with sound design is to have something very aggressive, like distortion, or in this case, a filter, and pull the dry wet back. That way you're able to mix in, almost like it's in parallel, a really cool effect that might normally be just way too aggressive for your sound. But pulling the mix knob back allows you to just slide it in there and make things smooth and nice. So we're in Serum, right? That means that we get access to warping, which is just so cool. And it's just like the next level of spectral synthesis that we can edit and change these. And this is where like the dank stuff actually starts to happen because it's just going to become something totally different. So let's go to the spectral ones. We know about filter and distortion, FM and AM, all that stuff, but I want to check these out because these are unique in Serum 2, but also work really well with the spectral mode. How about detune plus minus? I love how visually we can just tell what's going on. It's literally changing it. We immediately lose our tonality there, which is okay if we're doing a different type of sound design, like say our original source sample is a snare drum. Let's try that. So this is what the sound is. A nice little tonal snare. This works so well in electronic music for getting these metallic, strange sounds because you're scanning through a metallic snare drum. This might not like logically make too much sense, but I smell a new meta coming on here. All right, let's try out these warp modes. So like bend plus minus used to do, it stretches it from the middle, and we can see that visually happening here. It's pulling the middle up into high end. It's almost like a pitching effect. Let's try smear. Smear is one I'm really excited about. Watch what happens as we turn up smear. The fundamentals start to disappear. It's almost like a tape stop effect. Let's add some effects in here. I've got my Holy Trinity saved. Yeah, we're starting to get a bass sound out of a snare drum. Yeah, sounds like dubstep to me. So that's smear. Spread really warps it around. A lot of these really sound like we're shifting. We're frequency shifting around. Let's put an LFO onto this. Yeah, we're getting that kind of vocal aspect. I can see like if you're like a tear out producer, putting a snare drum in here and combining this with the convolution reverb, and you will be cooking so quickly and so easily. Harmonics. Subharmonics. Oh my God. That's a lot. I think if we were to combine like distortion here with a second warp mode, say maybe smear. We get something really rhythmic and interesting. Oh, we even have access to comb here. Let's bring a new sample in with this comb set on it. How about just like an ooh? Very cool. With the distortion and the comb filter, we're turning a vocal chop almost into like a flute or something like that. Pretty rad. So yeah, experimenting with different source samples is definitely going to be the tech here. Like what I would do is create a really cool sound, a sound that you like a lot and you're doing some weird stuff in it. And then you save the patch, duplicate it, and then just swap out the source sample and see what happens. You're going to get some really unique results. I think a key element to spectral synthesis here is keeping an open ear for possible new additions and new results. Like you might go into spectral synthesis thinking, hey, I'm going to make this type of sound. And yeah, you can totally do that. It's like when I talk about the difference between sound design on purpose and sound design for fun, where we're just hoping for random results. I feel like spectral mode is a really great way to do both, where you can get random results, but also create cool sounds. Like if you brought a bass sound into spectral mode, you could probably make a pretty rad bass. But I love that we can bring a snare drum in and we can still make a pretty rad bass. You can do the same with a vocal or whatever, because now you can play it at any octave you want, right? And scan through it in any way that you want, and also loop it in any way that you want. So very creative, lots of flexibility here. Spectral mode is dope. I would love to know in the comments what you think about spectral mode and what kind of cool patches you've made. Anyways, I'll catch y'all in the next video. Thanks for sticking around. Much love.